The Regents podcast. The Regents podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Regents podcast.
Welcome back, people.
I'm Ellyn,
And I am Aja,
and we are two best friends
who quit our jobs.
to pursue our passions.
Amen.
Follow along with our podcast.
That's right. That is the whole reason why we're here.
Absolutely. And also to become famous and
Oh, man.
And
We
to
are here to share our journey.
Yeah,
and we
we're
know
sharing
that
our
you're going to
journey.
love it.
Yeah.
We know that you're going to love it. And that so many other hundreds of thousands of people will love it too.
You know what?
Dare I say million?
Millions. The confidence that it takes. Sometimes I think about that, the confidence, like the blind confidence that it takes to like pursue something in like a public sphere, quote unquote, or like quite frankly, pursue anything that feels like a far-fetched dream at some point. Like and you see so many interviews with like people who have like, made it to the mountaintop and they're just like, I just didn't give up. Like, I don't even know if it's talent. I think I just like didn't give up.
I'm just delusional enough to think that I could do it and that it would happen.
Yeah, exactly. So like, let's invest in that delusion.
Absolutely. No, you have to be a little delusional.
Exactly.
And we have just the healthy right amount that one needs.
Just the right amount of Delulu. Okay, people?
Right,
That's us.
Delulu.
That's who you're speaking to right now.
That's it. Welcome to the Regents podcast.
Welcome. So guys, we are very excited to be back in action with all of you. I'm really glad that we are here. We're trying like new stuff. We're doing we're doing a new recording setup. Like all new things are happening. And I'm really excited because we are doing an episode about protecting your peace, which I don't know about you guys, but I feel like sometimes I'm like really good at protecting my peace to the point where like I'm like, maybe I've protected my peace a little too carefully, and then it's just like, you
She's
got to
reclusive.
Yeah. I'm called out. Which is why I feel like this is a good episode for us, because I do have a tendency like to be lightly reclusive under the guise of protecting my peace.
Because it sounds good.
Yes. Olive.
Hey, Olive. She said, I have to protect my peace and somebody's outside. So, but yes, this is an important convo for us to have. And I think it's really great because where we are and the conversations that we've been having so far this year, we started out with our vision boards and now we're really in the groove of the year. And, it's easy to fall back into old routines, old habits, even in our very early journeys. But, we have to kind of, just how we mentioned with the offsite and making sure we have to like refocus and realign.
Yeah.
We always want to maintain, the protection of our peace. That's something that should be constant.
100%. And also, it's something that I think sometimes you don't notice your peace is being drained until it's almost like burnout.
Yeah.
Until you've reached a burnout stage. So that's where I feel like, and that's kind of the conversation that we want to have in general, is just kind of like identifying, how, you may be contributing to your own burnout, right? And how do you, establish some kind of like work-life balance that also enables you to still be successful and still be and show up as the person that you are. So I do feel like that it's a quick pipeline of like not protecting your peace to overwhelm to burnout.
Exactly.
And it is your responsibility to protect your peace. And then I think the way in which you protect your peace can be good and sometimes controversial to people.
Oh, that part.
Yeah, right?
Because boundaries and all that, people might not like it.
No.
That is so true.
And that actually, that kind of brings me into this, like the cultural impact of you know, what would you need to protect your peace from? And personally, I feel like we both kind of came up in that like girl boss era of like, we're going to break the glass ceiling and then we're going to go to the moon and we're going to just like we're going to achieve and it's this like hustle culture that we kind of came up in and
Yes.
like you can have it all plus supersize it type thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious, we were in different industries, but we were still like, girl bossing.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of curious from your perspective, like, what did hustle culture look or feel like for you?
I would bet that it looked the same as your hustle culture in a
Yeah.
different, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
different industry. But, being in music and obviously a very male dominated field by all means, it looked like as a band leader, making sure you're doing more, much, much more than your male counterparts, right? It was toiling, kind of standing your ground, but also, we're talking about a time when we were still very much maturing in our professional careers. So having enough confidence, kind of like what's that phrase? Like growing into your shoes that you had to fill. But it was taxing and it still is. I don't think that's gone away. The girl boss kind of vibes and still the fight to achieve and, be viewed as an equal in male dominated fields or whatever has unfortunately it hasn't really gone away. It's just more prevalent.
Yeah.
And we're infiltrating those scenes more, but yeah, it just looked like how it's always looked for me as a
Mm.
young black woman,
Mm-hmm.
always doing more than the next person, making sure that I'm going above and beyond and,
Yeah.
assessing and just doing all of the things.
And
Yeah.
how like I agree and I think it is very similar and I think perhaps like from our careers and being high achieving people in those careers and like be always being looked at as like an example or someone that somebody can trust and always like rising to
Mhm.
an occasion. I feel like maybe some of the perhaps hustle culture bad habits have transferred into this new creative world that we're in personally
Mhm.
for me, because sometimes I notice I'm just like, yeah, let me answer that email. Let me get to this and let me get that. And I have to kind of like pull it back and kind of be
Yeah.
like, okay, remember like what's sustainable and like you can't sustain if
Yes.
this is all happening at the same time or like you're going from this thing to the next thing to the next thing. I mean, even as much as we both use our voices professionally, right?
Mhm.
And there's only so much that you can use your voice until your voice starts to kind of decline. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that that's also just like another I mean, because it's a limited resource, right? Because
Mhm.
time, energy, we kind of like don't pay attention to those things the way we should, but because we eventually start to like degrade our output, like
Yeah.
vocally, like last week even, I was just like, I think I need to go on vocal rest. Like I have just been
I've done too much.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I think then this idea of like just keep go 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 it does create this like and I can take on more and I can do more and I
Mm.
can answer more emails and I can make more videos and and it's like it's not sustainable. And also there is like output starts to degrade, whether it's your vocal quality, whether it's the type of content I'm putting out into the world.
Mhm.
I also find that I like will eventually I'll like be like, that's it, I'm done. I've had enough. Like just post it. And it's like, no, that's not like the level of like what you want to put out into the world just because you're like,
Right.
a
Tired.
done. You're
Yeah.
tired. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Mhm. And
It's a lot.
it is a lot, and I'm curious to know what, if any, you found, like, any differences between kind of hustling then when you were in
Mm.
corporate versus hustling now in your, creator role. Like
It's interesting because I think back then there was also like an evolution. Like in the beginning, it was like hustle, run yourself into the ground kind of thing. Like stay late
mhm.
every night, answer emails and slacks into the night. Like it was all very like come in on the weekends to work
Oh
on work.
gosh,
Like
yes.
it was
Yeah.
like, that level. And now it's funny because I'm working more in a way, but it's a more manageable, more
Mhm.
contained. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because I'm working, like when I say contained, I mean more so like balanced. It's
Mhm.
sustainable. So I am working more because I am the only benefactor of the project of
Of
Ellyn,
the things.
but also
Yeah.
like of the success. Like, and I need the success of
Mm.
like booking new gigs with clients and stuff. But at the
Yeah.
same time, because it's me that's wholly in control, I'm not trying to like go 9 to 5, which was really like 9 to 7,
Mm.
and then outside of that try to do other things with my life while also having exhausted myself throughout the day. Now it's more like, I hate saying it is like a 24/7 thing, but
Mhm.
because it is 24/7, that does allow me to kind of put my quote unquote 40-hour work week throughout that 7 days in a different
Yeah.
way.
Totally different way.
And I feel like that
Yeah.
has enabled me to like manage this, which it could be completely unbound and uncontrolled. Like I could be like, every day I feel like I have to do the 100% most. And now I'm kind of like
Mm.
creating a world where it's like, okay, well, like this day you do this thing, this day you do that thing, then you have this chunk of time to do this. You know, maybe every day
Yeah.
starts and ends with X, Y, or Z. And so I've created a little bit more of a like a sustainable structure
Yeah.
to still hustle, but to do it in a way that's sustainable.
I love that. And if I'm being honest, I think that was something that I really had to learn and
Mm,
adjust with in transferring from, corporate 9 to 5 type of
yeah.
schedule to an entrepreneurial schedule where everything kind of just ebbs and flows
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Because to me, in my mind, I was just like, oh, okay, I'll have office hours or, whatever it might be from whatever the hours are, 10 to 6 or 10 to 5, whatever it might be. But I found more freedom in the flexibility of making it so that like it's more fluid.
Yeah.
And still having structure though, because for me that just works.
Yep.
But it was an adjustment for me, like thinking like, because now you're just like, oh, I have all the time in the world, right?
Mhm.
But then you really do have to figure out either what works for you or set those like clear boundaries for yourself to say like, no, this is the time that I do this, and from this to this I'm working on X, Y, and Z, and I have like personal things that I also need to take care of, during business hours because personal things are only open during nine to
Oh,
five.
I and that's
Banks
not
and
something that
healthcare.
disappears, right? Like you're
No,
still like, "Oh, okay, because everybody else operates on 9 to 5 as
on this
well.
schedule.
I have
Okay.
to fit that stuff in." Yeah.
Into
Yeah.
my workday. You're
Yep.
intruding on my workday, but okay.
Exactly, exactly.
That still exists. But yeah, that was definitely a like a learning curve for me. And I feel like I've gotten a little better with it, especially this year.
Mhm.
Honestly, so recent as my offsite. In the past few weeks, it was just kind of like a refocus on how I spend my time.
Yeah.
And I think it was brought on by the need to really have deeper work sessions and stuff like
Mm.
that, where it was just like, okay, I'm using do not disturb on my phone. I'm really focused and honed in on, what I need to do. The first
Yeah.
couple hours of the day, I give myself a little bit more flexibility to kind of ease in, to set the intention for my day, to journal, to, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that's just created so much, like it's opened up a new world for me. And it
Mm.
doesn't feel like hustle so much.
Okay.
Like, it just
Yeah.
really feels like more like intention. And I've always been, obviously, we know, we've always been about intention,
Yeah.
but this kind of like newfound routine and these deep work sessions that I've set for myself and the structure of a routine,
Yeah.
a flexible routine, if that's a thing, has given me like a new kind of like a newfound energy on all of the things that I do, which is
So
really cool.
so that's I really am I'm interested. You just said a newfound energy.
Mhm.
So I find that really interesting because I think that sometimes people feel like the only way to kind of like breathe new life into themselves is to take like this long vacation, or like I just need to be out of work for a while, or I need to take a break. But being in the industry of yourself, quote unquote, like being in your own
Yeah.
business, solopreneuring, I know you mentioned that you did your offsite to kind of like breathe new life into yourself. But I'm curious, and we can kind of talk a little bit about just like red flags, but like how do you
Mm.
notice when that energy isn't there? Or how are you planning to kind of notice when that energy starts to dissipate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. I could tell clearly because my attitude is different. And it's not so easy for me to focus on the things that I need to
Mm,
focus on. I'm excited about the work I'm doing. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I didn't leave, a job to go and do something that also felt like a job.
Mm,
Like I am genuinely excited about the work that I've been set out to do. So
mhm,
whenever I find myself just like kind of in the motions or whatever, it's like, girl, why can't you focus on this? Because I'm a person that can focus.
mm,
That's when I know you need to like step back. You need to step back, reassess, like new scenery, whatever it was. And that's what this offsite did. It wasn't even like I went on this whole like, oh, I'm totally unplugged from everything. I don't want to talk about anything about work. It wasn't even that. Like I literally went on the offsite I mean, obviously an offsite is for you to focus, but I also use the word retreat. I kind of like
mm.
use those two words interchangeably when I was speaking to like my Uber driver. And he was
Aw,
like, a man, he was like, oh, what is this? Like a manny? Like, are you going to do like a spa day or whatever? I was like, well, no, it's not a spa retreat. It's an offsite slash retreat. So I'm like just taking a chance to, refocus, realign on my purpose and, kind of do some
yeah.
deep dives, whatever. But the days were very much like deep work sessions, 5, 6
Okay.
hours at a time. And then in the
Wow.
evening, it was chill, like have fun, go out on the
Yeah.
town, like that type of thing. And that so I was plugged in. I didn't allow myself to like speak with clients and stuff like that because that's just me kind of in a hustle type of mode.
Mm,
But I notice my attitude is different. I notice that I'm not as excited maybe about doing some of the work.
yeah.
And that's when I can tell like, oh, that's a red flag. We need to, and that's protecting, like we're talking about protecting my peace. Like
Yeah.
my peace is working in my purpose. Like I find
Mhm.
peace doing the things that I love in music and all of that and going after career goals. If I'm not in that space where I'm loving that and finding joy, maybe
Yeah.
I don't immediately find joy, but if I can't find the joy in that, then something's off and I need to get back to it. So,
That is so spot on. It's just like noticing when you're kind of like not finding the joy and not finding peace and not enjoying the thing that
mhm.
like was like your purpose, like this is my purpose, this is what I need to
This is what I
pursue.
fought for. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
I think I feel similarly in that like when I'm like really tired or I feel like I have no
Mhm.
energy to like do the thing or
Yeah.
do the next thing or I struggle to find motivation, I think that's when I
Mhm.
start to notice like, okay, hold on a second, like we need to kind of like
What's happening?
reset, you know? So I feel like I'm kind
Yeah.
of in a moment of like, okay, let me get back to like routines that were really helpful to me of like, let's
Mhm.
get my affirmations going, let's get my journaling going again. Like let's
Mm.
get these certain things going because otherwise I start to kind of like and the whole thing of like protecting my peace and like knowing what my schedule looks like so I'm not just like overextending myself or like acting like I can do something this week that I can't do, you know.
Mm. Yeah,
i
yeah.
I feel like, I even am like pay attention to, okay, what are like fixed things in my life that don't ever change? Like I have to walk Olive, I have to take care of, I have to feed her in the morning. Like these are things that are like very fixed in my schedule of the day. So if I even
Yeah.
like pay attention to those and account for that and recognize that it does take time, then I'm
Mhm.
starting to like respect
Oof.
the time of the day better
That's so
because
good.
I'm very like I become time blind, which I think is a part of like having ADHD is you really do start you kind of ignore a lot of like actual structured time things, which
Yeah.
I think was one of the benefits of being in a 9 to 5 because like when you're there and you're working. But I
Yeah.
also really struggled with like I would look over and be like, oh, someone's like booking an appointment or someone's doing this or someone's doing that. And I always struggled to like take myself outside of work when I was at work. So
Mm.
now I feel like it's not that I'm like trying to do work while I'm do it like personal admin while I'm
Wow.
working. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Now I have like, okay, there's like a chunk of time for personal admin. Now there's a chunk of time for this. And it's like, okay, let me look at the week ahead and be like, okay, where's
Mhm.
this going to fit? Like, and that's even new.
Right.
Like, I've been looking at my calendar being like, I always struggle to find time for this thing. So
Mhm.
I need to actually look at my calendar and make it a fixed thing that's
Yeah.
as fixed as a meeting, you know?
Right, right,
So
right.
that it's just like that's when it happens. That's when it gets done. It's not this like things happen when they happen. Because I think that when you stop with that intentionality, like you were saying, that's
Mhm.
when, you don't even notice red flags.
Oh, yeah.
You don't
Absolutely.
even
Yep.
notice that things are starting to pile up. It's starting to get more difficult.
How could you? Right. You're
Exactly.
just going through the motions.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like something that we could do, knowing what we know now, and
Mhm.
something that I think is, maybe a little like open, maybe less of a letter and more of like a statement to your past self.
Yeah.
Maybe it's this past self this year, last year, maybe it's 5 years ago in your old job, what have you. I'm just kind
Mhm.
of curious, like, what would you say to your past self about, the balance of hustle,
Mm.
but, protecting your peace and self care within all of that? Cause it looks different for everyone.
Oh, right. Mm. Huh. I would say to little old Aja,
Aw.
uh, I would say don't, and take this word with a grain of salt,
Yeah.
but don't beat yourself up when you start to realize that maybe motivation or focus is not so easily and readily available.
Mm.
Take that time to just kind of step back
Mhm.
and then get back in it. Because what excites me, I've always known. Like, I feel so blessed to know I've always known what I've wanted to do with my life ever since a little girl.
Mm.
And so I'm not having to, like, if ever I'm in a space where it's just like I don't feel like doing this at all,
Yeah.
then there's something, then I'm off and I need to recalibrate. So
Mm.
I would just tell myself to kind of be patient, be okay with stepping back and not
Mm.
feeling like I'm missing out on something, or, an opportunity or whatever it might be, or looking at hustle culture.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say to do the things that make you happy and that
Mm.
help um, to kind of foster the peace that you love. Like, I'm a simple person. I just like to travel the world. So, I mean, those types of things, taking a trip, a day trip, coloring. I freaking love coloring.
Mm.
Just kind of listening to music, being okay with not being available sometimes, because I am that person. I always want to be there for the people that I love.
Mhm.
I love to be able to provide and do for people. But sometimes I need that time for myself. I just kind of need to be MIA a little bit, not for
Mhm.
long, but I just have to get back to myself. So that's what I would tell past me,
Aw.
even as recent as last year or a month ago.
Yeah. Oh my god, 100%.
Listen.
A hundred
So
percent.
yeah, that's what I have in mind for me. Now, what would you say to you?
Hmm. Um, I think the thing I would say to my past self, and this is more so like when I was in my like career in an
Mhm.
office, my 9 to 5, I would say, because I would notice when I would have like I would call it like rougher edges, and I
Mhm.
wouldn't usually have the like regular social grace with
The
people.
tact and
Yeah, the tact. And I think
got
like
it.
it's I would say very foreign from my actual demeanor and behavior.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
when I would reach that point, I would usually know I'm like, okay, it's time to go to like a new job. But like
Mhm.
there's just, like you've clearly had enough here, and like there's enough
Right.
that's like expended your emotions. Like you haven't been able to kind of manage that and protect your peace, but also like maybe the culture, maybe the environment's no
Mm.
longer serving you.
For
And I
you.
think that like maybe trying to catch that stuff sooner and be
Mm.
proactive
Right.
and not feel like those rougher edges are coming out and now you're getting a little bit bitter because you're still stuck there, you
Right,
know?
and you're reacting. Yeah.
Exactly, reacting. And I think that that's more so like an overarching note of just like proactivity in general
Mhm.
is a good thing. So
Oh,
like,
yes.
even right now, I'm like, scheduling and like pre-planning work for the week ahead. Like all of that is like super helpful and being proactive and planning my day and planning my week and whatever.
Mhm.
And I think I was super anti being type A and super scheduled and like, I need to follow this routine and I need to do this thing and then I'm going to do this and I have to do this because I think I tied it. And this is, we can talk a little bit about how like self-worth and productivity comes into play, but I tied a lot of my, you know, I'm not type A. Like I'm not this
Mm.
like stickler or difficult type of person to get along with. I'm just Ellyn and I'm just successful and it's going to look like, my feet are going under the surface like a duck, but I'm cool as a
Yeah,
cucumber
cool
on
and
top.
calm.
Roll the
Mhm.
water off my back. You'd never know that it was like chaos. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think because of that, you realize and I learned like you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think that that's the thing I would tell
Girl,
myself
preach.
is that, you really can't. And not again be proactive and don't let it get there, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
now as I'm in a place where I'm like accepting and no longer fighting against, so like maybe I do need a different type of structure, but I need the
Mm.
structure, right? And not being so
Right,
like,
right.
oh, like that makes me
That's not
difficult or like
me.
that's not
Right.
me or like that will make people perceive me in such a way. And it's like you need to not be one worried about what other people think, and two, if it's what you need, then it's what you
Yeah.
need, to be
That
to be
part.
successful.
That's really, really good. And, I think we kind of, we as people in general, sometimes we judge a thing based on, a past kind of interaction with it. But being
Mhm.
type A doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be, stiff and, whatever. It's just maybe you,
Immovable and difficult, like
yes,
exactly.
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 Right. So it's like don't prejudge what you might need, Just be open to work in what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
definitely a
so
big
good.
shift.
That's a big shift.
Yeah.
But I love that you said, like, if I don't have the same amounts of grace. And that's exactly what I'm saying too. Like my attitude changes. Like,
Mhm.
why am I not so kind? I don't why do I not have the time? You
No,
know?
I know. And then you just then you're like spending more of your energy again, like talk about not protecting your peace. Now you're spending more energy to try to be nice when you're not feeling very
You're
nice.
not feeling kind. Exactly. Like
Exactly.
I'm just
And
not there.
and who are you giving that kindness to? Because that's a big thing I think about a lot is like, you know, protecting your peace so that you can treat the people in your life, the people who love you the most with kindness. Because I think often
Right.
we wind up like the people who are closest to us wind up becoming punching bags to some degree sometimes,
Mhm.
depending on how you're feeling, which, that's also part of a closeness of a relationship is there is that elasticity that can handle, when everyone's having a bad day. But like, okay,
Yeah.
but you can't also be like the best version of yourself for every other person
Right.
except for the people that you
And
live
then
with or are
fall short.
closest with or in a relationship with.
Right.
Do you know what I
Not
mean?
acceptable.
No, not acceptable. Not
Mm-mm.
acceptable. So that's on my
That's
list
good.
of things for in a partner is someone that knows how to protect their peace so that I get the best version of them,
Yes.
not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
people
yeah.
that they work with or,
Oof.
whatever.
That's a whole other topic for another day
Oh, for
because
sure.
being in corporate, you see that like, oof, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I
that
also
is not no
I
bueno.
couldn't stand when people would complain about their partners at work either.
It is so tacky and not cute. Maybe you're
Not
not with the
cute.
right person.
No,
How about that?
I honestly feel like I'm like scarred from a couple of like people that I worked near in the early parts of my life because like
Mhm.
it just created such this negative thing around like certain types of relationships and certain types of like situation. I was just like, what is happening? This is like my
You sound
formative. Yeah,
unhappy.
I was like, you sound like you like have disdain for your partner. Like that's
Yes.
not okay.
That's not all
I'm like,
right.
this isn't this like being married and having kids and having the house and everything cannot be the be all end all if everyone is angry,
Right, right, right.
So that's where I feel like you kind of have to like, and again, like that's knowing your worth of that, achieving all of these things does not mean that you are actually achieving anything.
Right, exactly. And it's not an end goal. Everything is an ongoing process and
Yeah.
journey that we have to fix and correct at all different times because of different phases of life and
Mhm.
external circumstances, internal circumstance. Like there's just so many variables that I think people put even in, relationships, people put the wedding, like, oh, it's this event. I've done it. I've gotten married or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, but now you have a lifetime of marriage to actually cultivate and like really groom and everything. Like that's the
Ugh.
important part.
And that's
It's
and
not
that's I
just your
think
wedding date.
exactly, and that's I think a lot of the things that people are just like, to use a previously used phrase, like box ticking in life.
Mm,
And even with like career success, right? Like you're gonna like I
yeah.
mean, we've spoken about this before where I was like, I'm gonna make a certain amount of money and then I'm gonna be like really, really happy. And
Everything
like
will be
this is gonna
done.
be the thing. And it's like that kind of gets into the conversation of like, detaching self-worth from productivity and like the idea of
Mm,
like, output and like marriage, kids, check, 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 or like career, this by 30, like check, check, check. And it's like, these are all not necessarily self-esteem builders.
right,
They're just like
right.
life check marks
They're
that
just life
somebody put in
events.
place at
Mhm.
some point that perhaps never even has anything to do with actually how you really feel.
Right,
So
right.
that's where I feel like, I would have situations where I would be in an office setting or like even with clients that I'm working with now, like I think I've gone over certain situations where I'm like frustrated by something or, you know, is the success of winning this client deal or this business worth, and the money and the dollar amount worth like the sacrifice of which will be my peace. You know what I mean? And I
Mm.
and I just recently have
Yeah.
gone through a situation where almost immediately from the jump, I felt something inside me being like, this doesn't feel right, doesn't feel aligned. And I think
Yeah.
that is something that I've been so grateful to for being a solopreneur that I can actually like I have like the privilege of being able to identify like who people I want to work with and who are people I don't want to work with. And
Yeah.
also the experience of like working with a person or a group or whatever that I'm like, "Oh, I didn't really like how this went. And I didn't really like how, and I don't know if I agree with how this went down. And like learning even how to like kind of detach this, but I have to win. I have to succeed. I have to be the best. I have to achieve. I need
Mm.
to make this money and and more so aligning, is this aligning with me as a person? Does this align
Yes.
with me as somebody who wants to represent like, intentionality, right? And
Mhm.
authenticity. So I think the more that I've like quote unquote detached my self-worth from like I
Yeah.
booked this business, I book more business. It's like I'm always going to book more business. Like that's the intention,
Right.
that's like the plan, right? I'm always going to be booking business. My
Mhm.
self-worth comes from when I'm proud of what I've done, right? My
Right, right.
self-worth is like I know I'm going to book more business. I'm not in a place of less.
Of
I'm
lack.
I'm
Yeah.
coming from a place of abundance, right? And so that again, it's like pouring into self-worth. And I feel like a lot of people don't recognize that like self-worth as a human being plays into every aspect and every facet of your life,
Mm.
in your job, in your personal relationships, how you speak to yourself, in your family, in your like it's
Yeah.
all connected. You know what I mean? Your self-worth, your self-esteem. So being able to detach like I worked at this place or I did this or like I achieved this goal or let me tell people about this and how much money I made on this deal. It's like that's not like
Right, right, right.
especially if abundance is the mindset, like there will always be money coming in, there will always be deals coming in. Can you be,
Yeah.
can you say that you're happy yourself, you
Right,
know?
right.
So
Mhm.
that's that. I don't know. I think about that a lot because I used to listen to the Dax Shepard podcast where he was like, I had achieved all this success and I had made it to the mountaintop of like being an actor and raking in a millions and the whatever. And he's like, and I was still
Yeah.
desperately unhappy, you
Oh.
know? And I
Right,
kind
right,
of can
right.
connect to that with like my previous career and why I was so unhappy. And I'm like, I created all of this like self esteem based on this career that then I was just so unhappy that it's not even worth it.
Right.
So
Right,
I
right.
feel like I feel like it's an interesting thing because it's very different for everybody of like what is self-worth in relation to like output and productivity. And like if I just do more,
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
curious from your perspective, like if you just do more, 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 like do you ever feel like you get stuck in that or do you feel like you can navigate the I am not my output? It's very big in our capitalist society right now. I am
Oh
not my output.
gosh. Puh. Um, I do think that I can separate myself from that. I do I make it a point to focus on less is more
Mm,
in a lot of regards, because I realize that, and I think this comes from me having listened to so many like so many podcasts, mentors, like who
mm,
have done more, you know, like they've done that. And I'm that type of person who looks at the other outside person, sees what they do, and then I can assess like how I'm going to move.
mm,
So, I'm not the person who's just like, "Oh, no, 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 but I can do it and nothing's gonna happen to me. I can do more, and I'm still gonna have the time for my family and da da da." It's just like, no, well, from a human standpoint, you know, if I produce more, then that means I'm also either neglecting myself, neglecting something, because
mhm.
I'm only one human. I only have 24 hours in a day. There's
Yeah.
only but so much energy. I have to sleep. Yeah, I
Yep.
have to take care of myself, maintain health. So it's just like I think I'm more pragmatic when I look at it. It's just like, well, if I do more, then I'm taking from something else. What
Mhm.
matters most to me in this moment? That's kind of how I approach it. And I feel like and sometimes I think I would, or I'm the person who errs more so towards like less
Mm.
instead of like more. Sometimes I have to push myself to do more, you know, instead of being like too graceful with myself, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
But I do look at it like from a practical standpoint. And it's really just, I guess, an equation. Like I'm just like, okay, well, I
Mm.
love math. So it's like, all right, well, if I do more of that, something else isn't going to get done. What's that?
Mm.
Am I okay with that? Nah, never mind. You
Yeah.
know, and it comes from, you know, just tying all of this back, like we're talking about protecting our peace from like a personal standpoint, because our persons affect our business. But I think it's also so key, and you kind of mentioned this, like basically protecting your peace in your business. Like if you're the type of person who kind of needs to see it in a different sense, or maybe you're not your business. Well,
Mm.
what are the boundaries for your business? What your business stands for, and you know ethics of your company or whatever that you're building.
Yeah.
Protect the piece of that entity. If it's not
Mhm.
you and it's totally outside of you, maybe you've sold it or you just operate in a consultant type of role now. What does that mean? You know, you're
Mm.
working with maybe a person or an entity that maybe doesn't align with your values. Like
Yeah.
there's peace still to be protected,
Oh,
you know,
100%.
because it affects and it trickles down. And I love thinking sometimes I feel like I just love kind of imagining, like, okay, well, when this becomes a thing that I can no longer manage on my own, you know, what will that look like for me? Like, how will I make the decision at that
Mm.
time to say yay or nay? What will be most important to me? Am I worried about, because I
Yeah.
have like employees to pay and all that type of stuff? Am I just worried about the deal, or am I still worried about, you know, loyalty and them, you know, their output and how they feel and what they originally got, you know, into and signed up for and committed to. So there's
Mm.
so many things.
I know there is a lot when it comes to the idea of like protecting peace
Hmm.
and also the output and like you're not just your output, you know what I mean? Like especially in our
Yeah.
culture and our society where it's just like, what's your output? And it's like, well, I mean, it's like I'm the most strapped I've ever been, but I'm also like the most at peace with myself. So like what,
Hmm.
at what cost? You know what I mean?
At what cost? You know, and that's so I wonder, like, if it's just a sense of naivete that maybe I have or something like that, but it's just like I think that's when things get lost. I think
Mm.
that's how we begin to live in a capitalist society by all of these, which listen, I am not against capitalism.
No.
Compassionate capitalism
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
is what
yeah.
I am a proponent of, where it's like there, yes, we care about the bottom line, okay? However, at what cost? You know,
Mm.
and I think that's when things get lost, when people just focus on, I just need the bottom line to be this.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how I get there, it doesn't matter who gets stomped on. That's when we
Mhm.
lose everything, you know?
Oh, 100%. I
So,
think I even like I think I even felt that in my career where I was just like, there was so much of like just bottom lining. And
Mhm.
I'm like, there's so much more. Like, what's the human impact on this? Like,
Right,
us
right.
agreeing to certain things. Yeah, I always just felt like very like, am I betraying, like, and this feels so lofty to say, but like, am I in some way like betraying my own humanity by agreeing to do this
Mm.
work or agreeing to do this thing? And that's where I kind of like, over time in my career, I really learned how to start to protect my peace more because I valued myself more. And the more
Mhm.
successful and the more output that was becoming valued of me, the more I was able to, and this is a little bit like self worth is connected with productivity, but like I felt like the more and more and more I removed myself from the machine, if you will, and was like,
Mhm.
I used to say this to people are like, how do you even think that way? I'm like, what are they going to do? Fire you if you don't answer a Slack after work? Do you know how hard it is to fire someone? Like, that's what I always used to like preach to people. I'd be like, do you honestly understand how hard it is to fire someone? Like,
Right.
and like own up to a mistake. If you
Yes.
make a mistake that's like, oh, I made a mistake, like, or whatever, like own the mistake. Unless you have made a mistake that cost the company billions of dollars, millions of dollars, whatever industry you're in,
Mhm.
or you've created a PR nightmare, a simple mistake, an error in number, like a small mistake of like I
Right.
sent an email that I shouldn't have sent. These are all things you can own. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
think all of
exactly.
that stuff kind of came into how I got away from just being kind of like at the mercy of whatever everybody else needs and wants from me and
Okay.
not being able to protect that piece. And I'm
Mm.
kind of curious, and I feel like we now have like we're in our game era and we love to play
Yes, we
games.
are.
So I feel like some real, like, tangible support that we can offer people is kind of like playing this game of like protect or neglect, right? So,
Mhm.
like, would we do these things, certain scenarios?
Yeah.
Would you do it or would you not do it, right? So, like, throwing
Protect it
out
or
certain
neglect it.
scenarios, would you protect it or would you neglect it? And we can also
Okay.
speak to perhaps certain things that we may have, neglected in the past,
Yeah, yeah. But we live and we learn. We do better, okay?
100%. What's that
Yes.
TikTok trend that was happening? We listen and we don't judge.
Oh, right,
We listen and
right.
we don't judge. So do you want to let's do like every other, or do you want to go five and
Yeah.
five?
Let's do let's do every other.
Okay.
Yeah. Are we gonna do like a speed round
Um,
or
well, I feel like you
maybe
could
for the
say like,
last 5?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
I
just
don't
read the first one and let's see where, like, let's
know.
do what
Okay.
we would do and if we have anything to add to it.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
We won't pigeonhole ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Protect or neglect. Checking emails first thing in the morning before even getting out of bed.
I would that neglects piece. So I would not
Okay.
do that.
Okay, amen. That was
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
yeah, I was like neglect.
It,
I don't like checking my phone for emails first
yeah.
thing in the morning. I feel like it's just like I just woke up. Let me thank
No.
God first. Hello?
Yeah, no, I don't do that. That's not a part of my morning routine.
Right. Okay.
Okay, here we go. This is for you. Taking a midday nap even though your to-do list isn't finished.
Protect. Because sometimes, listen, you might be better off if you just take that 20-minute refresher and come back to it. You're
See,
probably wasting time.
I struggle. I struggle with taking a nap. Like I struggle with the
Mhm.
like you're tired, like you're clearly tired. Why don't you
Yeah.
take a step back, go lay
Mhm.
down because I've never been really a good napper and I don't want to have that be a continued narrative. I'd rather
Yes.
enable myself to be like, "You know what? If you actually gave yourself time to nap, maybe you would nap." And maybe then you'd be
Yeah.
able to like keep going, and
Mm.
keep putting, maybe I have to be careful about like keep outputting. But, I
Yeah.
do think that like there we've been conditioned to not nap during the day because it's 8 to 3, then it
Mm.
went 9 to 5, like
But I
work,
don't know
work, work.
how, because we started out napping.
Ah,
Hello?
you
We had
restore your
naps.
body. Your body heals itself when it sleeps. So the more sleep, the better.
It's so restorative. And I too am not a big napper, to
Yeah.
be honest. I must be if I can nap Brandon will tell you I must be like super tired because I've
Mm,
tried to be like, oh, let me just take a nap. I know I'm tired or whatever, but I'll lay there and I'm just like, and
yeah.
nothing's
It'll even
happening
take me a while to fall asleep.
to fall asleep. So, but I do think there's so much power in a quick nap.
Yeah.
And I know from experience, the times that I have been fortunate enough to just kind of like fall asleep and whatever, I do wake up feeling more like, oh, that's all I needed.
There you go.
Because last night I just didn't get it or, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I love
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Okay, so next, protect or neglect muting work notifications after 7 p.m., even if an important email might come in.
I would say that protects your peace.
Uh huh.
And I would say if it's really crucial or crazy or something is like hugely important, they could text
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
Or you
okay.
could even, um, know that, if you kind of live in a world where this is kind of the business and things are always happening, then just
Yeah.
check your email, have a scheduled time in the evening that like you do a second, just check, just to make sure nothing has gone crazy between when you
Yeah.
left work and when you got home and fed yourself, fed your family, like, did stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's okay depending on like what your life and structure looks like, you
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
Like I
And
know
what your
that
schedule looks like. I
yeah, like I
mean,
know there's so many people that like leave work on an earlier side just so they can like have time with their children. And I
right.
completely respect that. So
Yeah.
and then they go back online at like 8 or 9 o'clock. So
Right.
as long as that's
Right.
cool with them and their partner, if they have a relationship, then go for it.
Then go for it. And I
You
love the
know?
compromise too. Like if you need to set maybe you're one of those people who get like super lost in your email.
Yeah.
Maybe you just set a time like, okay, I leave at 5, but then I check again at 8:30
Yep.
and I no more than 45 minutes or, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Set parameters for yourself
A
so
hundred
that,
percent.
yeah, that's really good.
100%. Because I used to be like Slacks were coming in like into the night and I'd be like, but no,
Yeah.
sorry, no.
Oof. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Taking on last minute client project because you don't want to miss the opportunity.
Mm. You know, it depends.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, because sometimes you got to stretch yourself
Yep.
because it might be a thing where you need to take it for the opportunity.
Mhm.
To make that a habit, no, neglect that.
Exactly.
Bec-
Exactly.
yeah, because just kind of like what I was saying before, if we're making a habit of it, like, oh, I'm always available. You need me tomorrow? You need me tonight? Sure.
Yeah.
Then what else am I neglecting? Something else is getting
Mhm.
neglected because I'm filling time with whatever.
Yes.
So I would say it depends. Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. Glad we're on one accord with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
This one, blocking off an entire day just for self-care or creative time. No business tasks allowed, protect or neglect.
I think that protects peace.
Amen.
We're both proponents of
Yes.
offsites, so
Yeah, y'all know how we feel about an offsite.
exactly. Like do that.
Yes, be creative. Just
Okay.
unplug.
Okay, number 6. Saying yes to a networking event when you're feeling socially drained.
Oh, you and I spoke about this for you not too long
Mhm.
ago. I remember this. When you are socially drained, oof. If you're drained, I'm going to take that word at face value,
Yep.
then neglect it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There will be plenty,
Yep.
if not infinite more
Ex
networking events.
I am of a similar I'm a similar like if you're socially drained, if you are drained,
Yeah.
going to a
It
networking
ain't
event
worth
is
it.
not you're not gonna be don't do it. It's
Don't
not
do it,
worth
girl.
it.
Don't do it, girl.
Everything boils down to that.
Literally.
Yeah, because you're not even gonna
Oh,
be your
man.
best self, so you're not even gonna show up
No,
in the way that makes sense. So now it's just
that you
like
would want.
that's the pouring from an empty cup, that's not it.
That exactly. And you're going to be
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
pissed off at everybody who comes up to you and wants to have a whole conversation. You're just like, "Oh my gosh, why am I here?"
Mhm.
So good. Okay, number 7. Turning down a higher paying job or client because it doesn't align with your long-term vision. Protect or neglect.
That is protecting your peace.
Yes, I would
100%.
say.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're not in purpose if you're just doing stuff because it pays well. If that's the sole purpose, then that's your intention. Your
Yeah.
intention is to make the most amount of money, no matter what. But if you're trying to, act out of like a real vision and carry out something with a bigger plan, there's so much more to it.
And not for nothing, eventually your peace will not be protected, even if you are like flowing with the cash and the
Yeah.
money's coming in and you have all these like, exciting things that you can talk about client wise. Like you
Mhm.
eventually, if something doesn't align with you, whether it's your vision, whether it's your purpose, whatever word you want to use, eventually your peace
Yeah.
will be infringed upon,
Yeah. That part.
right?
Okay. An hour later, which one you
Yeah.
want?
And that's the thing. Sometimes like protecting your peace is taking a high paying gig because you're currently struggling financially and you just, you need the money to come through. And that's
Yeah.
how you have to like make, that's how you can start to make decisions. Like when is it okay to kind of like acquiesce on certain things or like, take on the last minute deal,
Hmm.
even though you don't really have time for it, but you need to hit it to meet your goal. Like
Right, right.
and that's where I think getting really clear on like these things then helps you make those decisions in like a moment of like frenzy, if you will, or in a
Yes.
stress or more high stress, time sensitive moment.
Right, right. That's
Okay.
great.
Speaking of time sensitive, number
Mhm.
8, spending an hour scrolling social media as a break from work.
I would say neglect,
Yeah.
because I'm not a social media person.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Um,
I literally wrote that in my journal today. Like, don't waste time scrolling because there's this
yeah.
intentional scrolling, and there's time that I have in my life to scroll, and then
Yep.
I picked up my phone like a Pavlovian response, and now I've lost 25 minutes.
Not a dog,
No, but you
right.
know what I
No,
mean. Like, you just out of
seriously.
nowhere just pick up your phone, and then you're like, oh my god, it was 25. What happened?
But that's
That's
what most people do, right? We
uh-huh.
we often just kinda just like, "Oh, my phone's here, so
Yeah.
I have to kill time." And I think too, like, if you're supposed to be breaking from work, I would dare to say it's not really a break, because how many times have we, like, stopped scrolling from a phone and it's just like, "Wait, my break is over already?"
Oh
Like, I don't feel like I checked out or did anything, you know what I
no.
mean? So, and then who knows what you're gonna see? You're just at the mercy of the algorithm, and it could be something that totally upsets you. Now you're fired up in ways that you didn't wanna be, like, so it's just, ugh, it could be a mess. Um,
Agreed.
okay, these last 2 we'll get through quickly. Delegating a task even though you feel like you could do it better yourself.
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a
That
tough
is tough.
one.
Happy that's
I
yours.
feel like in my life, across all my career and my personal solopreneuring, I feel as though I had struggled, but did come to a place of peace with this, which is I know that I put a really good amount of time to training people and
Mhm.
teaching, and I feel like I'm really clear with like articulating, if I'm trying to teach someone how to do something or if I'm trying to give someone a task to get
Yeah.
done that I want, done to a certain standard or whatever, or want to prepare someone to do a good job. I
Yeah.
know that I do a good job of delegating.
Mhm.
I don't know that I would delegate enough, but I definitely think that I would do a good job when I'm getting someone to delegate when I'm delegating to someone. So then I do feel like that is a big peace protector,
Yeah,
but you
absolutely.
have to actually use
Major.
it and you
Yeah.
have to set the person up for success.
All good points, Ellen.
Because if you don't do it and you don't do it right, then you're going to be like, well, it's better if I just do it myself. And it's like everybody who does that,
Mm.
everyone, it's better. It's just easier if I do it myself. You are not actually protecting your peace by actually investing the time it would take to teach the person to do it
Mhm.
or to figure out a better system for
Yeah.
the You know what I mean? Like I'm a big
Right.
like pour the time, pour the money in the upfront for the long game, long
Yeah.
term gain of peace protection.
Yeah. Of peace protection.
Yeah,
We're
that's
in
my business. That should be
the
my
business
business.
of peace
I'm in the
protection.
business of peace protection. Like, let me come into your life, and I'm going to tell
Listen.
you where I can protect your peace. Here, here, and
No.
here.
That would be so
I'm
good.
an efficient
Listen,
person when it comes to like peace protection. Let me read
absolutely.
a month's worth of text messages and I'll tell you who to cut off right away.
Right now.
I'll tell you right
I'll
now
make
who to
it
cut off.
super
Let
easy
me
for
read
you.
through your inbox. Let me check what you're doing on social media. Trust me, I can
Yeah.
help you very quickly.
Right, right, right. Oh my gosh.
I feel like that's a
I
good
got this.
business.
No, literally, I want you to start it.
I just feel like I would just
Peace
be like,
protection.
not worth it. Why are we even engaging with that? Like, oh, why are
Who
you?
is that? Block.
Yeah. Why are we reading? Why are you still getting emails from this? Unsubscribe. Like, I'm like, I can Marie
Yes.
Kondo your interpersonal real quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Actually, kind of write that down.
Okay.
That's actually kind of a funny.
Girl, get into it.
Wait, do
So
you
this
delegate? Do you delegate?
well, at this current stage in my
Well, to
business,
who? I mean, honestly, who are we delegating
who
to?
am
To
I
ourselves.
delegating to? Uh
Olive.
but but in the past, like in my past role, I feel like I, just like you, spent a lot of time teaching the people because these were things that were easily teachable. It's not like singing in my style. I can't show you how to sing in my style, but this job, okay, this is what you're going to do. And when this happens, you have this. And I set
Yep.
up handbooks and manuals with links. You know how I am.
Mm,
You know how I do. So
same.
I gave all the keys to the kingdom and, set them up for success. And in the beginning, allowing them to feel okay to come to me. Like, if you need something, just come to me. Because once you get all those, you give yourself a couple months or whatever to get through all of that. You're
Yeah.
going to be Gucci. And then
Uh
after a
huh.
while, I'm going to tell you, like, okay, what do you think?
Exactly.
So that you can figure out on your own, like, how you would respond to a situation or whatever. So delegate, because I don't have all the time in the world.
I also knew I had to get okay with if it's not the exact way I would do it, it doesn't mean it was wrong.
That's right.
And
That's a
accept it,
thing.
and accepting. Because I think a
Yeah, and
lot of
being
times,
okay with that.
oh, the managers who are like, no, don't use those kind of bullets, or like, why are you using this font? Like, that's insane. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it's like that kind of level of like, if we don't have a brand guide, make a brand guide then. Do you know what I
Exactly. If you
mean?
want it to look a certain way or whatever, it has to be
Yeah.
programmed
If
or
I've given you a
whatever.
template and then you've done a different thing, then I have a problem. But
Yeah.
if you're starting from like a blank page and you're giving me
Mhm.
something and maybe you did it horizontal, maybe you did it this way, maybe you did a collage, that's where it's like you have to kind of like protect
Yeah.
your own piece again of like, you know what, it is fine. It's not how I
It's
would do it,
fine.
but this is quality and we're fine.
Exactly. And does
Yeah.
it get the job done? Because that's
Mm-hmm.
that's how I
It
remember,
gets the
like,
job
reading.
done. That's a Chapel Roan song.
Oh, I was like, "What song is that?" Shout out to Chapel.
Love her.
But I would look at certain things too. It's just like, okay, like, I wouldn't have drafted it that way, but you know what? You got the point across, and
Exactly.
it's you. That's
Yeah.
how you would get the point across, and it gets the job done. Period.
100%.
Oh, this is perfect to end on. So, protect or neglect, Ellen, let us know. Taking a guilt-free vacation without checking in on business at all whatsoever.
Oh, that protects your peace. And I have been a perpetrator of the opposite in the past.
Oh,
And
we've heard about your Mexico trips.
that's exactly what I was thinking
She's on the beach with her laptop.
about.
No, ma'am,
No,
please.
ma'am. That reminds me of like Las Culturistas, where it's like, I don't think so, honey. Answering and staying on your laptop at a on Mexico
Oof.
vacation.
Child, please.
That was
No.
so bad. That was so bad. I don't do
She
that
was
anymore.
young. She
No.
didn't know any better.
No,
She
I was
really
young.
didn't.
I was young. It was before I felt like secure in my career and
Yeah,
oof,
right.
horror. And it
She
was
was on the
also me
come
not
up.
being able to delegate, being like, oh, I'll just do it
Mm,
myself because I can't teach
I
someone
got
else how to
it.
do it.
No matter. I'm gonna be in a totally
Yeah.
different time zone, different climate
You
on the beach. It's fine.
take vacation and be on vacation because
Be on
also
the
not for
vacay.
nothing, when you break that rule of being on vacation
Mm,
and still doing work, whether it's personal work, whether, what have you, you know what I mean? Like, and again, like, because
yeah,
we're in a different world, you know, I don't see it the same way as I did at my job, right? Like doing and
yeah,
answering
of
emails for
course.
myself right now, like, if I want to move something along, sure, I'm going to check my email and move it forward, if I
Mm-hmm.
so choose. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to like book work to do while I'm on the you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to like
Right,
set up
right.
things I need to do or like schedule things for during the work, right?
Can we also talk about the power of the vacation responder?
Oh,
Listen, If people know that you're going to be offline from Monday to Wednesday, and if it's super urgent, you need to email this or whatever, or forward, emails from this person, like
Oh,
use the
yeah.
tools.
Oh,
That's what
yeah.
because that way I feel like you can step out. If it's something that was like super urgent, but you were socially, mentally, emotionally, physically drained and you needed this trip, maybe you don't need to check anything. And maybe that last minute opportunity just wasn't meant for you because you
Oh,
needed
yeah.
this time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
A
So it's
hundred
just like,
percent.
take the
Take the
vacation
vacation.
guilt free.
And also
Okay.
just know that, like, if you are someone that communicates during a vacation and you're in a
Mm-hmm.
leadership position, you are creating a precedent and you're perpetrating an
Mm.
unhealthy work culture.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people who are in charge or in bosses or whatever, they don't really perceive themselves as boss,
Yeah.
as leader. And then they do things that they're, oh, I would never ask anyone to reply to my email during this time. It's like, then you should have delayed send till Monday morning. Then you should have not then you should have just
Exactly.
made a note for yourself to reply to that when you get back, because every
Mm-hmm. Your
time you
example.
do, yes, you lead by example. 100%.
Yes, absolutely. If they see that you're answering emails while you're in Europe on your vacation with your family,
Yep.
they're not comfortable to not answer emails when they're
Mhm.
on vacation with their family because that's what you do. Like
Exactly.
you must be expecting the same from me. Like,
Exactly.
so yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I'm so grateful that I did have a VP and bosses and stuff in the past at my past job who were very much like, take your time.
Yeah.
Don't worry about us. We'll be fine. Because honestly, they will. They will be
They
all
will.
right.
They'll be totally fine.
Please forget
Especially
it.
if you work at a company. Everything with a grain of salt when you work at a company, because I feel
Everything.
very strongly about, you need to create healthy
Right.
boundaries. You need to create, because they do not care about you. I'm sorry. Unless you're
They
working
don't
at a 10
care.
person family owned something, like that's a
Right.
more
Right.
familial
We're
vibe.
everybody's family.
Yeah, like, to honestly, like
Seriously.
every
Seriously.
company, like, it's just, yeah, I could talk about that till the cows come home, but I'm going to protect my
Absolutely.
peace
And
and not
not
waste time on
upset
that.
yourself. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That part, I love that. Guys, we hope that this did something for you because it
Yeah.
was also, very healing for me
Yes. Oh, yeah.
to to chat to my former self and give myself permission to protect my own peace, set the
Yes.
boundaries, and
Yes. Give
it's
yourself the permission to
the
protect your peace.
permission, exactly. So, please let us know if there's any ways that you've noticed your own red flags. Maybe there's something totally different. Maybe you have something totally left field
Yeah.
that's like, you know what? It's a red flag when blank. This is how I know I need to like reset to protect my peace
Absolutely.
and start over.
Or how do you protect your peace, or how do you, what are things you do? Like, I leave my text messages on read when I know
Mm-hmm.
that I want to get to them, but I can't get to them now. Like, that's something I do for
Yes.
myself, so I don't stress about having to answer right away.
Right,
So what do you guys
right.
do? Let us know. Comment below wherever you're
Please.
watching this. Let us know. I'm curious. We can all teach each other and learn
Yeah.
from each other.
Right. We can literally be like, I saw a comment from our last episode where someone said this and I tried it and changed the game for me.
Exactly.
I would love
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Well,
Yes.
thank you all so, so much for being with us and listening to the Regents podcast. Make sure that you are
Yes.
subscribed, you are following wherever we are, wherever you're listening. Make sure you're liking, commenting, make sure you're sharing with people, okay? So
Mhm.
that maybe you're going to share this with someone and inadvertently passive aggressively tell them that you're protecting your peace.
Right. Okay. Just watch this and don't
Yeah.
contact me for a week.
Yeah. Like the low key repost to an Instagram story that feels very pointed.
Right. Yes. It's a lot of subs. It's giving subs.
I
Okay.
love it. Oh my gosh. Well,
Oh,
love you
wow.
all and love you, Aja. Thank you so much for being here with
And
me.
I love you, Ellen, and we love y'all. Thank you for listening and enjoying the Regents podcast. We'll see you next time. Oh my gosh, look at
Because
that.
I'm on an iPhone.
Oh, okay. I don't get that, but if you're listening, there's a bunch of confetti, fake confetti that just fell on
Eh.
Ellen's head.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Bye. Oh,
Bye.
yes, we will.
The Regents Podcast. The Regents Podcast. From the microphone a bit.
Okay. You don't
Hello,
need any
everyone.
more amplification.
No, dude, I like constantly put my audio down. I don't understand.
Mm.
I'm putting my audio down so much it has self-esteem issues.
Oh gosh. But
All right.
okay.